do get the sense that Jose is a tad fed up with this line of questioning, but it's something we need to address. Obviously, the biggest player at one of the biggest clubs in the world, Ryan, is there a problem? Is there no player bigger than the club at Manchester United?
I think there's a clear problem. The relationship with Paul Pogba and Jose Mourinho is clear for everyone to see. I think both of them have come out in interviews and said some remarks that show that. And at the end of the day, Manchester United are bigger than anyone, bigger than Mourinho, bigger than Pogba. And I just feel like the way that the situation has been handled, it's not reflecting well on Manchester United, because for so long they've been one of the biggest and best clubs in England. And at the moment, the talking points are stuff like this.
So, Darren, so just what is going on? I mean, we've seen it rumble over the course of the week. We've seen both men have perhaps their say, but in different ways. I mean, do you go with what Ryan says? It's unbelievable that a club of this stature is getting embroiled in what is an argument of sorts, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy because a club like Manchester United, as you said, like, these problems never existed before. When Alex Ferguson was in charge, you never heard of these kind of problems coming out, players revolting against the club, coming out and openly criticising Alex Ferguson. It just didn't happen. And if a player did show a bit of dissent, they were gone. But in this whole period, it's crazy because, for one, I just don't understand how it could become such a big issue, because surely a manager like Mourinho, world-class manager, world-class player like Pogba, they could have obviously sit down somewhere, go into the office and have these kind of discussions. But the way that they're openly criticising each other, it's not helping anyone else. And because Manchester United are not in any great form anyway, it's clouding the whole issue. They can't seem to get any consistency again in the league. Obviously, their form struggling. We just went out the cup in the week. And I just think all these problems, there's clearly an underlying issue that obviously maybe we don't know about.
Well, I mean, Jose said there's no problem, but we've seen clips come out this week, haven't we, of the way that they've interacted in training. And we're not saying at any stage that we're expert lip readers here at Sky Sports, but that's not the most genial of good mornings, is it, between player and coach?
No, I mean, I was saying there...
And that look, wow, that's 1,000 yards for Paul Pogba.
To me, it looked like he came out maybe late. I mean, that's the only way it looks to me, that he's come out late, and obviously Mourinho's not happy with that. And he's obviously telling him that. But as I said, for it to happen in training and in front of the cameras, it just sends out the completely wrong message, because, as I said, for a club like Manchester United, these kind of issues shouldn't be getting out. I mean, they're a classy run organisation that I've never had these kind of problems, but all of a sudden, things are getting leaked left, right and centre, and it just doesn't feel right.
I mean, we've all been stood in the position where you're on the training pitch, and it's always better when someone else is getting into trouble, isn't it? And you can have a little nose in, have a look. But this is in front of the cameras, it's in front of the rest of the players. I mean, the rest of the squad must dominate every kind of conversation at Old Trafford.
I think it's a bit awkward. I mean, as an ex-player watching it, it is a bit awkward. And listen, Benty, you said it. If he did come out late, then, in my opinion, the manager was right to pick him up on it. There's no excuse for coming out late, especially someone like Pogba, who's obviously a key figure in that change room. And if he knows the cameras are there and he's come out late, then the manager's right to pick him up on it. That shouldn't happen. So it's unfortunate the cameras are there, and it's probably been blown out of proportion a little bit. I don't think Paul Pogba done himself any favours with the way that he looked at Mourinho, because at the end of the day, he's the boss, he's the manager, and I just felt...
So is he more important to Manchester United than Paul Pogba is, then, the manager?
For me, 100%. 100%. What kind of message does it send if the club picks a player over the manager? For me, that shouldn't happen at any football club, and Jose Mourinho is a serial winner. He's one of the best in the world. I know his style and his philosophy probably doesn't suit Manchester United in this moment in time, but for sure he's bigger than Pogba. And, listen, Pogba's a great player. He's a player that for so long we're saying has got potential to be one of the best in the world, and he showed that in the World Cup in the summer, but he's not proven himself at Manchester United on a consistent basis to back that up. And the way that the whole situation has been handled, for me, it's not right. Do
you think, Darren, that's where the questions do lie? Because if he was dominating on the pitch, if he was winning games single-handedly, and he still wasn't in the manager's good books, then I suppose it'd be in the manager's good books if he was doing that on the pitch, wouldn't he? So you said about the start to the season. Are they intertwined, their poor start with this relationship going sour?
Maybe. I mean, obviously, he had a fantastic World Cup and he showed people what he's all about. But obviously, Manchester United have not seen that. And as Ryan was saying now, I think if his form had been as it was in the World Cup, I think this wouldn't really be an issue. I think maybe Mourinho would maybe give him a little bit leeway, but I think Pogba would have more respect as well, because I think maybe it's frustration. That's what I'm trying to say. Maybe it's frustration because he knows he's not playing his best. He's getting criticised left, right, and centre. I mean, he opens the papers or he's on TV. There's former Manchester United greats having a pop at him, and it's probably all playing to his psyche. So obviously, he's now maybe revolting a little bit, coming out late. And that's why I said if the manager if he comes out late and the manager feels that he's got to say something to him, he's got to do it. He's got to make that kind of statement that, listen, I don't care if you're Paul Pogba and one of the best players in the world. If you're going to be late, I'm going to criticise you for it. And ultimately, if you continue to do it, you're not going to be here, you're not going to play.
But it's come in the context of what's happened over the course of the week, hasn't it? Obviously, the Derby result, the news filtering out before the Derby result of the fact that it'd been stripped of the vice-captaincy. So it's situations like this, without everything else happening, causes questions. But the fact that they're all kind of consecutive, that strikes us something deep-rooted, doesn't it?
I mean, Pogba's last 2 weeks has probably summed up his Manchester United career, you know, in the Champions League against Young Boys, he scores a great goal, he scores the penalty as well, and then the weekend he backs it up with a really poor performance. So I feel like his inconsistency hasn't helped the whole situation because he's the star man at Manchester United, and when he's on form, Manchester United are a completely different side. And I just feel like Jose's probably given him too much responsibility. I mean, for me, he's not a captain. He's not a captain. I see it on the pitch. His attitude at times, I don't feel he sets the right example every single game. And if you're thinking of previous Manchester United captains, you're thinking of players that drag everyone with them and they're consistent. They're 7, 8 out of 10s every single week, and Pogba isn't that. And I just feel like
why isn't he there? He's got a World Cup winners' medal in his cabinet. Why is he not?
Some players
should we expect more? Yeah. Should he be as consistent as we all expect him to be, or is he the type of player that does fluctuate?
I mean, some players are like that. I mean, you probably see it more with wingers. I mean, wingers in the past, there's 8, 9 out of 10, 2 or 3 weeks in a row, and then a 3 out of 10 performance. But a central midfielder at Manchester United needs to be consistent, especially if you're given that captain's.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just think as well, maybe the way Mourinho's using him as well. If you looked at the French squad, obviously Kante sat there and Pogba had this licence to go here, there and everywhere. Whereas at Manchester United, I think maybe they're using him a bit wrong. He's playing a little bit deeper. Sometimes he's acting as a holding midfield player. He's not really got as much licence. So he's kind of playing within himself. But obviously when you saw him play for France, like when you looked at the team huddles and when they were in games, he was the leader. He was the vocal point. They were looking to him and he was like dictating what was going on. And I think that all goes into the whole way Manchester United are playing. It doesn't. Maybe Mourinho's philosophy and the way he wants to play the game doesn't really...
But, I mean, he's obviously indulged at international level, isn't he? He's allowed to do the utmost, and obviously sometimes when a player is indulged it can kind of cause chaos, but they've indulged a player there that's won them the World Cup. Surely as an example of how to handle Paul Pogba, that's the best one. Yeah,
I think Jose has given him the freedom. You know, he's given him the captain's armband. What more of a bigger statement is that? And then Benty, you said about him playing out of position. I completely agree. I feel like Pogba he's probably a luxury player to a certain extent, where he needs 1 or 2 beside him to do the donkey work and give him the ball and produce a moment of brilliance. But at the end of the day, if the manager at Manchester United puts you on the football pitch to do a certain job and you don't want to do it, then to me that's sulking. That's not the sign of a top world-class player. Because as a former professional, I've played out of position plenty of times, and I would never dare not give my 100% all and salt. For me, that just... I question his professionalism if that is the case. Well, there is an element, isn't there, when we take a look at perhaps the effect that Paul Pogba's had on the games for Manchester United this season. I mean, his stats back up the fact that he is an effective player. I mean, is he an effective player in the sense of the Manchester United team haven't been functioning at top level, so someone has to stand out. But when we look at those, then we flip it forward onto the fact that he is also the man that gives away the ball a lot. I mean, is that because he takes risks? Is that because he's sloppy in possession?
I think it's maybe a bit of both, but also as well, I think they put so much emphasis on him to do everything, pretty much. Create, score goals, get stuck in. And to be fair, the possession loss one is him probably taking risks. I mean, a lot of these top midfield players, they look for that killer pass, even if it's not on. If you look at the way he passes the ball, he sprays it 50, 60 yards, or maybe the striker makes a run. I mean, he's my type of midfielder, because if I make the run, I want the ball to come. And I think that's why he gives it away a lot. But if you look at some of the other midfield players in their squad, Matic, he's not going to go and find the killer pass, or Fellaini. It's not their game. So for Pogba, he's that key to Manchester United because he's instrumental in everything they do, attacking and picking up the ball from deep and trying to set attacks going.
Well, I mean, so let's throw it forward. Where does it end up? Look at Manchester United at the end of the season. Are they both still there?
Next season, though.
I'd be surprised if next season they're both there. I mean, it's become such a big issue. I'll be so shocked if both of them remain.
I think if this was at any other club, it wouldn't be a big an issue because it's Manchester United, and for years, as long as I've been playing football and before that, it's always been classy, well-run football club, this kind of situation doesn't happen. If the player kind of steps out of line a little bit, they're gone. It's dealt with rather quickly and they move on again to do what Manchester United do. All of a sudden, this is rumbling on. The team's not playing very well. Something's got to change at the end of the day because it's not ruining Manchester United's legacy, but at the same time, people are now looking at Manchester United differently than they once were.
So do you think it's just not going to end well? We think it's going to end. One's going to go, one may stay.
Yeah.
But obviously, Manchester United carries on moving forward.
Of course, it's Manchester United, and that's football at the end of the day. I mean, there'll always be problems. Managers will leave, players will leave, but Manchester United will stay. And I think Benty said that it's not tarnishing their name just yet, but the way that it's gone over the last sort of 6 to 12 months, it's not Manchester United. And if it carries on going like that, then a lot of teams and players will look at that club in a different way.